May. First of all, I'll read the protocol that covers the meeting. All visitors must sign into the visitor book at the entrance to Kilncraigs. This includes council staff from other buildings. There is no planned fire evacuation drill or alarm test today, so if the fire alarm is activated during your visit, you should exit the building immediately. The council officers will direct you to the nearest fire exit and will escort visitors to the building fire assembly point beside the Silverman at the top of Parliament Walk. Kilncraig staff should report to their floor's assembly point. And you should remain at that assembly point until directed to reoccupy the building and only re-enter once the fire marshal has advised it is safe to do so. Please do not attempt to leave the site by vehicle until cleared to do so by the fire marshal to ensure that access routes are kept clear for emergency vehicles. Please note that this is a public meeting and the members of the public may be in attendance. The meeting will also be recorded by the clerk and published online for public viewing after the meeting. Otherwise, the taking of photographs, including screenshots, audio or video recordings, are not permitted during the meeting unless with the express permission of the chair. And members attending virtually activate their cameras where possible to enable you to join by video, and can all attendees mute their microphones when not speaking. Please do not come in during items. Please do not come in during items unless I invite you to do so. If members attending virtually wish to speak on any point, please indicate by clicking on the raise your hand button. Members in the chamber should also raise their hand and I will bring you in at the appropriate time. If members have not been able to access all the papers for the meeting, please indicate now. Fine. I will now ask the clerk to confirm the attendance and we'll ask that members indicate, following that, indicate if they wish to declare an interest.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think there's only two. We've got Councillor McLuckley, who's got his apologies, and Councillor Benny. I'm not sure if we've actually heard from him, so we'll take that as an apology.
That's fine.
Thank you.
So we and can proceed. So I'll just reinforce the declaration of interest point. Is there any voting member present got any declaration of interest? None at all. Moving on to paper 3. This is the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held in this chamber on the 13th of March at 9:30. I'll just go through these one at a time, one page at a time, and please stick your hand up if there are any errors, omissions, or other corrections to be made. Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8. No amendments. The minutes are adopted. Page 4. This is a paper on the community asset transfer request for Marsville House in Alloa. We have a minor legal point to sort out first of all. The application has been placed in process through in the name of the Alloa Community Shed. At the moment, legally, no such organisation exists. The company reference number given to us in the application is that of the Forth Valley Men's Shed, and that is, according to Oscar, currently the title of the applicants. I think we can get around this problem. The company reference number matches perfectly with that on Oscar and Company's House. So there's no argument about who is applying for it, but I think technically we should make an amendment at this point, since there is no such organisation as the Alloa Community Shed, that we should amend the application paperwork to read, to substitute the reading of the Forth Valley Men's Shed for the words Alloa Community Shed. That will make no difference in the long term to the application because it is the same organisation. We're not in any doubt about that. It's just for to keep it quite correct. We'll have to do it that way, but it won't change a thing later on. Please do.
So, do you understand what's going on here? So, because the application at the moment is in a company that doesn't exist. So, I know you guys are looking to go through that kind of legal process in relation to changing it over to the Alloa Community Shed. Just haven't happened yet. It's just a change of name, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's probably going through the process. So in order just to keep everything right from a legal perspective in terms of your application, we'll just keep it as the Forth Valley mentioned. You're quite comfortable with that? So that's
good. Okay.
Thank you.
The paper will now be presented to us by Kevin Wells. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. So,
Councillor Law.
Sorry, Councillor Fairley's saying that his camera's on, but it's not saying on. I think it could be the issue with the privacy notice. So I was just going to say to Phil, if he logs out of the meeting, logs back in, and the bit that has the initial screen that says, do you want to turn your camera on? When you go to hit the button that says turn your camera on, the privacy notice should come up there, and you just need to click that, and it should allow you. I'm just concerned that if he can't get his camera on, he won't be able to speak, and then if there's a vote or whatnot, that he won't be able to do that. So
we won't know if he can hear us then.
although he can hear us, but I don't think he can interact with us. So he's saying he did put his camera on, but it's not showing. And it's just if it's that, if he's not done the privacy notice, he won't be able to speak, or he won't be able to show reactions.
We'll assume he's picked up your advice then.
He's messaging me.
Well,
See if I can see, you can see me here. I'll log out and in again.
First time this has happened. Have to be yesterday. You're in touch with Chris at the moment, with Phil at the moment.
He's trying.
Saying log out and log back in.
To be honest, I've just tried to do it and it's not, I'm just seeing if it's working for me. It's not came up as a privacy notice.
Chair, a problem is while you went through the previous agenda items. I had one particular point when, if you remember, I submitted the amendment.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was possible if I could change the last 7 words in point 4 to Castbridge Cultural Campus, which I understand is a formal name of the complex of buildings. So sorry.
Has it been registered as that?
And that's what they're calling it, the Castbridge Cultural Campus. So on point 4 of my amendment.
On the final, can you pull it right down a wee bit so that? So, sorry, Chair. So in point 4 of my amendment, I'd wish to change the last 7 words to Castbridge Cultural Campus. Is that possible? I know I'm a bit late and busy.
That's the wording of the amendment, excuse me. It's passed at the time.
Yeah.
So it's not that the minute is incorrect.
No, the minute isn't incorrect. I don't know how we would do that. It's just I'm trying to get it more accurate in terms of how people are referring to that complex, those 2 buildings.
And we don't have a matters arising topic on here, but it could be covered by matters arising.
Okay.
From that, if we can insert a minute, then matters arising, then that be changed.
That's fine. That's dealt with. That's great. Thanks, Chair.
Looks like Phil's back on, but it's still no showing. So the bottom right hand corner there.
I've just tried to do it through my iPad and I can't get the privacy notice to come up. And it won't show the camera. It's,
Yeah, it never works for me either.
yeah, it's not, it doesn't seem to be.
Would you want me to get IT to address this? Sorry, Chair, so it's clearly an IT problem, but I'll need to get addressed. Councillor Fairley has my mobile number, and he also can contact me through Teams. So I think we've done this once before, where we've had this issue. If Councillor Fairley is comfortable with that, and he has any questions, he can direct them through myself, and then I can direct them through the chair. If that's, so that's good. If he can hear us all, that's great. So if he's got any questions, either text me or or do the Teams, if that's possible, is he okay with that? I'm happy to message him for Teams.
Message him.
Yeah, no, he said it's here, fine. Well, he is on Teams because he's up there, so he can hear us fine. So.
Okay, so we've got a patch-up job then. Yeah,
Yes.
that's fine. We're operational.
Good job.
At long last, Kevin, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. The report before the Planning Committee today is the Community Asset Transfer request for Mars Hill House in Alloa. The report seeks a decision in accordance with Part 5 of the Community Empowerment Scotland Act 2015 on the Community Asset Transfer request made by Alloa Community Shed, which we know as Forth Valley Men's Shed, for the purchase of Mars Hill House, Alloa. The recommendations are set out in section 2 of the report. But members, just to give some background, this is a property that is currently in the council's estate. It's not one we are currently utilising and is certainly not in the best of conditions at present. The group, which was established in 2015 as a maintenance shed, are keen to explore the acquisition of this particular asset with support by the Scottish Lands Fund. There has been a request to purchase the property to the tune of £120,000. The property itself has been valued at £130,000, which represents an 8% discount in value, which in terms of our assessment we feel is a good value in terms of the additional benefits that the project will bring. I can advise committee today that there has been a robust and generous assessment undertaken in terms of the asset transfer request, looking at the community benefit, the financials involved in the group and all other matters relating to it. I think it would be fair to highlight that there has been concerns from various different officers in relation to aspects of it in terms of the extent of works that is needed done in the property, certainly beyond what we would take forward as a council. But we do recognise the opportunities that exist for community and third sector organisations to attract inward investment in terms of what they can access that the council can't access in terms of funding, notwithstanding the investment from the Scottish Land Fund in terms of the purchase of the property. The assessment has identified that there's no real reason for refusal of the application, and the details are contained within the report that goes through the various steps and criteria as part of our scoring metrics. Myself and Leslie, sorry, brain went blank. Myself and Leslie are here to answer any questions that the Planning Committee may have in relation to this particular application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. It's worth pointing out, I think, at this point that the Community Empowerment Scotland Act of 2015 has a presumption of being in favour of applications of this nature. So our job not really is to find out if there are good points to this, but rather to find out if there are any bad points or reasons to refuse, which would cover things like, well, illegality, not being the organisation to stay there, but we've covered that one. Weak finances, unfortunate and unintended presumably impacts on other community ventures in the area. So basically that's where we should be making our examination as to the reasons to refuse, rather than looking for justification. I think there's enough justification, we'll hear about that presumably in the debate section. So any questions then from Councillor Fiona Law?
Hiya, so as you said, like the valuation is 130,000. See on page 26, the section 6 funding, 6.1, it says we're applying to the Scottish Land Fund to acquire stage 2 funding, which will cover the full purchase price of the building, providing we secure a 20% discount on the valuation figure. We intend to pay legal fees from our own reserves. So obviously, what did we say, 120,000, but that's only 8%, but the funding's based on that, getting the 20% discount, so I just wondered, is my understanding not right, or is there, what am I missing here?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Chair. In terms of that discount, there was a number of different valuations. One had it initially scoped at £150,000, but when it was valued, it was coming out at 130. So that was the difference. The 120 to 150 was the 20% discount. So when the funding was getting put in, it was on the basis of that broader figure in that sense. But in terms of the assessment that's undertaken, 130 is the value, and the price being offered up to pay for it was 120.
So I'm still not, so just because I'm then thinking, well, would that mean that application to the Scottish Land Fund's not got the correct valuation figure, or it's just, I'm just trying to think of like the process and the following it, that, you know, if they then go and look at this paper and we're saying, oh, it's 130,000 and they're applying for, I just want to make sure that, you know, the fund, there's no issue with the Scottish Land Funding and whatnot.
The clerk's got a point to make, I think, on this one.
The Scottish Land Fund's a tricky one. It's a bit of a catch-22 situation. It's, you kind of almost have to, it's a chicken and egg, sorry. So you would have to get the application kind of approved, and then the application then goes to the Scottish Land Fund. So what would happen here is if, in terms of this report that's going forward, we're saying that we're offering an 8% discount based on the valuations between the two of the two valuations that have been taken, one by the men's shed and one by the council. And the difference is the 8%, and that's what we're offering, is the 8% in terms of this report. That's what council's or committee is just agreeing, decide just now. Then, when they then put forward their application to the Scottish Land Fund, that is what they will be putting forward, is that 8% rather than 20%. They had to fill in the application based beforehand, so it's really one of these, it's all kind of gets all different steps. So the actual original application is slightly out of sync in terms of what is then presented to this committee. Does that make sense? Or have I explained that okay?
I'm still just like, so even if there's that 8%, but will that mean that they'll struggle with the funding?
Not necessarily, no,
right,
because
okay.
Scottish Land Fund will fund the total price.
Right, so it doesn't mean that they have to have this 20% discount. This is what I was just worried that there was an issue there with the funding, so I just wanted to make sure.
Kevin wants to come back in as well.
Councillor Law, I think I can probably make it clear. There's been two different valuations done. One by the group in terms of the valuation that they undertook, and then one by the council, which we would normally do in terms of to give ourselves our own assurances in terms of the valuation. The group and theirs, based on the valuation that they had, which they put in early doors in terms of expression of interest with the Scottish Land Fund, up at the higher level, which is accurate in terms of the information we've got. We have then came in later with our valuation, and it would be valued at £130,000, and that's what we are going on, which represents £8,000. That should have no impact in terms of their ability to secure funding from the Scottish Land Fund. It won't have an impact on it, and in fact probably even advantageous to the group in terms of that positioning. But that's the reason for the two different figures, is the time lag and two different valuations, and for two different purposes, one for the funding and one for the actual cap request from the council. In that sense, as I said, the outturn of it is actually more advantageous to the group in terms of, because it represents less of a discount, which would then usually attract a clawback clause, and the less of the difference for us means even more easier for us to justify not putting in the clawback clause overall. Hope that helps.
No, thank you. I was just worried that I didn't want you to have an issue that way. No, that's grand. Thank you for clearing that up. That's great. Thank you.
Good. Councillor McTaggart, do you wish to come in?
Thanks, Chair. In hindsight, it might have been useful to have a wee bit of narrative around that, because obviously there seems to be a discrepancy between the two pieces of information. So can I ask that it's minuted that we've questioned that, clarified that, for the groups benefit that we say something in the minute that says the original price of £150,000 would have yielded 20% had we not come in under that value. Something like that, so that it gives the group some comfort should we agree.
I think we can clarify the minute to say where the valuations came from. I think that would cover that. Yeah. Okay, good. The material point is the 120,000. That's the figure that matters. That's the amount of funding. Okay. Any other questions? I've got a question, and it's probably easily answered, but in page 10 at 3.8, it states in the second sentence about, just talking about the meeting on the public invited to make representations, and a total of 1 representation was received in support of the proposal. But when I go to page 26, it's talking about many more than that. So am I comparing apples and oranges, or apples and apples, and is there something wrong here?
No, Councillor, you're not comparing. It's not a mistake in terms of the figures and that. So in terms of the element that is in the report on section 3 refers to the public notification that goes up. This is actual public notice goes up in terms of the community asset transfer as part of the process, and there was only 1 representation, which was for it. The information in the back actually reflects some of the other support that the organisation has received in that sense. So it relates to 2 elements of support or against. One that we've referenced in the report is the official notification that actually goes up the public signs in relation to that. The information further in the document explains broad support that has been offered to the group in terms of their application.
I'm glad to clarify that, because for the benefit of press and public, insufficient public support is a reason to refuse an application such as this. So we need to be quite sure that there is, having read the paper, we are satisfied that there is adequate public support for this to go ahead. Because if it was only 1 person saying that, that would allow us to refuse the application. Do you want to come back in?
Thank you, Chair. Just also to give reassurance to members, as my experience has been with public notifications, you would normally get quite a lot of opposition to it rather than support, and the fact that actually the only submission under that has been positive, I think is actually an extremely positive sign in itself in terms of my experience in this field.
And are we content then that there's sufficient evidence that there is good support for this and not any opposition, no complaints from other organisations who feel disadvantaged by this? I'm just asking that of the members at this point. No questions on that topic. Any other questions that members want to raise? Councillor Mastilia for that.
Page 31's obviously got the map, and I read, obviously going through all the documents, they're talking about the developing the grass at the back, but I just wondered, just because obviously that covers that tarmacked area as well, will the group have that as well, the tarmacked area? And I just wondered, obviously, you know, that you've got the pharmacy there, and has there been discussions in regards to access and all that? Are we all? So I just wanted to.
Thank you, Councillor Lawling, through you, Chair. In terms of the space outlined in the red in the map and on page 31 is the area which would be asset transferred over. You will see that kind of brown golden strip, which is the existing right of access for the pharmacy. And that is actually the existing space that the pharmacy has access to and will continue to have access to as part of the deeds, in that sense, that the space outlined in red will be the space that is transferred over that currently sits with that asset presently. So there's no change to the setup in that sense. I appreciate that currently there may well have been other approaches taken by members of the public, etc., but there is no change to the existing conditions.
Yep, carry on.
And so I take it the group are totally happy with maintaining that area and whatnot, that kind of the tarmac area. I just because that wasn't mentioned in the, so I just thought it would.
I suspect, Councillor, that that will be in the missives of, yeah, so that will be covered. But
right.
that's
No.
why
we preserved and protected in the missives.
Yeah, no, that's grand. I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
No, fine. Councillor Vasily.
Yeah, I know we're really just being asked today, as I understand it, the merits of the community asset transfer. However, I attended the training session yesterday, and unfortunately I was on mute. I heard everything. The issue that I have is, say the Alloa Community Shed were to outgrow the premises, or God forbid that they ran into some sort of difficulty and they had to sell the property. Could we put a clause on it that the local authority has the first opportunity to repurchase the building? The only reason why I say this is that the area around the town hall, Mars Hill House, the car park, it is largely owned by the council, and I know, although it's not referred to in this report, there have been various studies outlining that that area has potential for expansion of the town centre, which sounds a bit ironic when we talk in this day and age, and also the fact that we've haven't intervened in the sale of the police station. But sorry, my main question is, could we put in a clause that made it first dibs if the building was put back in the market?
That's the question I asked yesterday about a preemption right on it, and Mark dealt with it. I'm going to ask her to deal with it again.
Yeah, I mean, if the committee decided that that's what they wanted to do, is put on a condition, a right of preemption, we could certainly incorporate that. As I said, preemption rights don't bind successors. So if we were going to do that, then there would need to be a fixed charge over the property to secure the obligation of the preemption right. The impact of that from the men's shed's perspective, and they would have to seek their own legal advice around that, would be that I'm not sure what the impact of that is in terms of their funding with the Scottish Land Fund, but that's not really the concern of the committee here. You know, the funding aspect of it, it's if you want to preserve the right in terms of reacquiring the property for whatever reason, then you have the ability to do that as a committee, to put that condition on.
So sorry, just to clarify that, would that add a burden onto the Alloa Community Shed then at this stage?
Potentially, yes, and the reason being is that you know, they've got an application with the Scottish Land Fund. The Scottish Land Fund have a tendency not to want any conditions being placed on owners when they are acquiring property. And indeed, even when the funding is released to these particular purchasers, or, you know, in terms of the funding, the Scottish Government itself doesn't put any conditions on the loans. It's only over, I think, a certain amount of value. I've had this out with the Scottish Land Fund on a couple of occasions. So that would be the only thing that I would raise with the committee, is that the impact of the potential preemption right may not, but may have an impact in terms of their funding with the Scottish Land Fund.
Are there other ways around that, in terms of like a minute agreement between the council and that Alloa men's shed, that, you know, if they were to sell on, the council get first dibs?
Well, there must be somewhere, I would think, some protection, because in worst case scenario, I'm not thinking these gentlemen are responsible for this, but you could see a situation where after the CAT, people go, it's not working, we'll sell it to the developer and build houses on it. We need some protection from that. Is that where the clawback arrangements come in?
Yes, so if you were selling it, I mean, so at the moment what we're offering is an 8% discount, and within that 8% discount, there is the community benefits, which equals best value. I suppose that if you were selling the property on the open market to a third party, not through a community asset transfer, would you be looking for a clawback agreement in relation to that?
So who was first of you two? No, I'm going to say Councillor McTaggart. Who's the first one?
Did we not have yesterday, was it not mentioned, because they are a charity, though, if something like that did happen, because of the charity status, then part of that knock-on effect is that they would have to use, the building would then have to be given to somebody else on that kind of charity status. So even though it wouldn't come to the council, it would then have that continued community benefit. Is that correct? Is that my understanding from yesterday?
That's correct. Whilst we didn't go into the whole of the details of it, there are aspects of that it's not 100%, ring fenced around that. I think what Councillor Balsillie is almost trying to look for here is not so much, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words in your mouth, it's not so much the fact that in terms of failure, it's more around, well, actually, if they do decide to sell, this might be an opportunity for the local authority to be able to take the building back and do something with it in conjunction with the town hall, rather than a failure aspect of it. I think, Kevin wants to come in as well.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of this aspect, so if the group outstayed or outgrown the property, in terms of and was looking to go elsewhere, in terms of its charitable obligations, it would have to secure the best possible price it can, and that may not necessarily be what the council could offer. As well, they would have an obligation to do that for the charity to support its function. If it goes up, if the charity winds up, then there was the clause in terms of the obligations to other like-minded groups. In that sense, I would imagine if it is outgrowing its property, it will be seeking the sums to fund whatever its next moves would be in that sense. So there is a bit of a complexity in amongst that aspect.
So I was just going to come back in again there as well. The other thing to think about in this, and as I said, it's your decision if you want to put the preemption, you're perfectly entitled to do that. One of the other things is if they were putting the property back on the open market, there's nothing that would stop this council offering to purchase the property at that point, if we felt that we were in a position that we could do, rather than putting the preemption right in. Because any preemption right would be on the basis of market value and the best offer that they receive, so it's almost the equivalent of putting in an offer.
Councillor Quinn. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I don't see the point of adding all this hassle onto it personally, because if it's on the market now for 120 grand, we would buy it. No, we're trying to offload it for that amount. We're not interested unless we have a need for a building in this location to do something, which we don't. And if it was on the market and we did have a need at the time, then we would. As far as I'm concerned, it's a listed building. That's going to give it some protection with what's done with it in the future anyway. So I don't think we really need to do this. I think it's fine, just leave it as it is.
Respect, that's a debate.
Yes, sorry. Do you agree? Sorry.
Kevin, what was the basis of the valuation that we ran on it? Was that full commercial value, marketplace, for any purpose?
Chair, in terms of the valuation that would be done, it would just been our standard valuation on the property, on the asset itself, in terms of its current purpose that we would have used it as a working office type asset, so it would have been done through our external contractor. I think that would have been Shepherd's in terms of on the basis of what we used it, which would be one of our public buildings. In that sense, not on the basis of any residential.
Okay, thanks. Councillor McTaggart.
Just in terms of the discussion we've just had, would the clause that's been suggested completely muddy the waters for any transfer ownership at a point where the group might either outgrow it or feel the need to sell it? Because Oscar already has all the regulations in place, as Kevin has just said. A charity can't just go ahead and sell assets. Obviously, there are regulations under Oscar, so I'm just wondering if that would just add another complex layer into whatever might happen in the future. Know that I'm expecting it to be.
No, it doesn't actually, to be perfectly honest. The only complex issue is around the Scottish Land Fund aspect of it in terms of the funding side for the men's shed. In terms of going forward for any future purchaser coming in, all it does is flag to them that there is an agreement with the council in relation to them having first right of refusal. What would normally happen, as I said, in these preemption rights is because they don't bind successors, you would put in a fixed charge over the property, and basically when they're doing the diligence, the solicitors, they would spot a security over the property, and the first thing they go is, there's a fixed charge over the property, let's have a look at that, and then they would see the underlying agreement going, right, council gets first dibs this in terms of the offer, and that's all that will happen. It's not an unknown, it happens in commercial property all the time.
And it wouldn't interfere with the the land fund processes when the group apply.
That's where, it could. As I said, the Scottish Land Fund have a tendency not to want any conditions at all in relation to it. I think my understanding is some of that position with the Scottish Land Fund has changed slightly over the years, understanding a little bit more about what local authorities need in order to protect themselves on the public purse side of things. However, I can't lie, my experience is that it could cause issues for the men's shed in terms of their funding application. But that's the legal advice to this committee. The men's shed would need to go and seek their own advice in relation to that.
Okay, we're at a point, I think we'll have to think about balancing benefits and disadvantages here. I mean, do we feel that we have adequate protection under Oscar for any exposure that might come in the future? Because it does sound rather as if it might be prejudicial to the applicant's case for funding, crucial, key funding, without which they can't go ahead. If we put in such a thing as the clause you're talking about. Preemption, right, yeah. What does the committee feel generally about the balance between those two? So,
to be honest, Chair, and I know I raised the issue, but I think the business plan's a good one, and I honestly wouldn't want to put any burden on the Alloa Community Shed. And I think the point was well put that ultimately if the council did want it, we ought to bid for it in the open market. So, and consider in my mind that I think we should try and not. I'm happy for a transfer to go ahead, and I don't think we should put any burdens on the property.
okay, this is a two-stage approval process here. Are we then saying unanimously we do not want this burden put on the thing before we debate the thing at the end? So I think on a sort of show of hands, to the point that the proposal is we do not put any burdens on the title that might affect the funding chances. Do we all agree? Kenny, no. And Phil, I guess, well, he's carried anyway. Fine. No burdens on the title then. Fine. Any other questions then before we move into proposing and debating the paper? No. In that case, I will formally propose the paper. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor McTaggart, thank you very much. Anyone wish to debate the paper? Councillor Wilson.
No, I'd just like to say I think a comprehensive business plan's been put forward, and contrary to that, there hasn't been any other representations in terms of alternative uses, or indeed from the council. So I think bringing the building into a positive use would be complementary to the town centre, and I think we should support the application. And I would have been delighted to second it if Jane hadn't gone in front of me.
Councillor McTaggart, do you want to come in? Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. I've seen a lot of the work that the men's shed do, and I know the positive impacts that they've had over time. I've been there and I've seen their premises and stuff. It is rammed with stuff and it's tiny. So I think this expansion would be a marvellous move forward for them, and I would be very, very happy to support this proposal. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Quinn?
Thank you. No, I just agree with everything that's already been said. Kind of congratulate them on the business plan. It's it's quite a comprehensive plan of what they're going to do with the place, and we know the benefits of the men's shed. I've been down there and visit, and I've heard them speak at community councils and different events here and there. So I know about the good work they do, and if this is going to help them expand that and make use of a building that's basically just sitting empty that we have no use for, then that's only going to be a positive thing. So I see no reason to oppose this, and I'd be quite happy to accept the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Earl?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Like Councillor McTaggart says and Councillor Quinn, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, can hear you.
Yeah, it's just frozen there completely. The comments that have been made by Councillor McTaggart and Councillor Quinn, I certainly echo. I've been down like there too, and Councillor Bilselli on occasion we went down there and had a look at the premises there, and yes, it is ram-packed. They need, for a health and safety reason alone, I would say to move out of that premises, because there's a lot going on in there. I'm really impressed with the business plan that's been written. I think it's one of the best business plans I've actually seen. There is interesting bits there about a women's shed, about working with the women's groups and that in there as well. So they're opening the building up to community use as well as the men's shed. So with that, I can only wish them every success for the future, and I'll fully support this application.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other contribution? Councillor Law?
So everybody said it was a comprehensive business plan. I thought it was a shed load of words. I'm sorry, I had to say it because that was I was thinking it last night, and then I didn't even realise. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm turning into my dad. But no, I thought it was really good, and it's just when you read through it and the quotes from the members and the board, you see how much the range of people from across the community that are involved in it. So I think it's really good. It's that kind of. It's kind of what we aim as a council for community wealth building and whatnot, and I think it is really good moving away from renting a property to actually them owning their property and having a lot more kind of space. I don't envy the work that they're going to have to put into getting the building up to standard and whatnot. So I just think it's really good. I would just say, I think at one point in the business plan, it talks about getting funding from the Clink Manager and Stirling Environmental Trust. I would say just to get that application in quickly, because that trust is winding down because obviously the landfill credits are stopping. So I would just get your application in there quickly. But yeah, no, totally support that. I think it's a great idea.
So as a result of Councillor Fairley's IT issues, his contribution to the debate is that he's happy to approve and delegate the authority in terms of 213.
Right. Any other contributions? Just finally, I would say it's a hugely ambitious project, but it's obviously powered by years of experience, both personal experience and as a group. I think if anyone can do it, you guys can. And I wish you a lot of luck, because there's an awful power for good in there for this community. And it could be quite a beacon, I think, as far as these things go. So for that reason, I'm totally behind the paper. So I think simply on a show of hands, are we supporting the paper? Kenny? And we'll take it. Right, the paper is passed. Thank you very much. I don't think we have any other business today, Clark, have we? Thank you, Chair. No.
That's all. Thank you.
That's us. Thank you for your time and your trouble, and your patience.